All of these titans of technology, like the Sam Altmans and the Elon Musk and Peter Thiel, all of them have a mindset that is totally different than our mindset. They also view us as a resource to be managed. The AI will monitor you 24/7. This idea is all about control, the beast system we see in Revelation 13.
I'm so excited because I have Patrick Wood with me, and he is an expert on technocracy, transhumanism, globalism, and with everything that's going on with President Trump, with AI. And the headlines had said Trump announced largest AI infrastructure project in history. And that's all we're hearing about is AI. And yet, when I scheduled this interview with you, Patrick, that was before Trump was doing all these executive orders. But meanwhile, so people are saying, because there's some really great things that are going on, like Trump telling the globalists at the World Economic Forum that he's freezing foreign aid, ending climate change policies, withdrawing from the Paris Climate Accord, rushing to get more fossil fuels, closing borders, stop gain of function, telling them that I'm not a globalist. So, there's a mix going on of, people are saying, wow, it looks like maybe Bible prophecy has slowed down, but then there's all of this push with AI, and you are an expert on the history and what's going on now. So what do you say?
Wow, exactly. You remember the movie Rosemary's Baby, I think it was, the stupid, it was a cultic movie about demon possession or something, where the head spins around, and everybody freaked out. Well, that's kind of the way we feel right now. It's like our head is just like, just go woo like this. And and the world is being turned upside down right now, right before our eyes. And where it will end, who knows at this point. But I think that the direction is set, where the old is being swept out and the new is being brought in.
And it just, you're an expert in all of this with the history of how this even began. It's like, how did we get here? Now, some people look at, the technology and go, well, hey, weren't people afraid of the radio? Weren't people afraid of TV? Weren't they afraid of the internet? And, we understand that there is technology, but it's what is who's going to be behind it? Who's going to be behind the technology? And it can get kind of scary now with AI. What do you think as far as like Elon Musk? There's such a mixture of what people think about him, but you know a lot about the history and the history with his grandfather.
Yes. Oh boy.
Now, if you can,
Elon Musk is the arch technocrat of the ages at this point. And he's kind of leading the pack in one way. His father or grandfather was indeed the head of technocracy movement in Canada for several years during the 30s and 40s. And so Elon grew up in a home that was steeped in technocracy. And if you don't understand a little bit about historic technocracy, you won't understand anything about Elon Musk today or about what's going on in the world today.
And we're going to get to that in a moment, but I just want to let everyone know we're also going to be talking about the race for digital twins, to produce digital twins, but we'll get back to that. But I want you to go through the history and even explain what technocracy is.
Exactly. Originally, from 1932 onwards, technocracy was coined as an economic system. It was supposed to be based on resource management, in other words, control over resources. Unfortunately for us, they also viewed us as a resource to be managed. We were just in the mechanistic mind. They thought that, everything is just kind of all the same, matter and biological stuff and whatever is just all just atoms. And So therefore, they had to manage the resources of the world, like the timber, the gold, the oil, and all that kind of stuff. And well, we were also included in the mix that we need to be managed as well. So that said, the economic system was to be regulated by energy. In other words, energy is required for all economic activity. So they surmised that that would be a good way to control or at least monitor uh, with a currency based on energy, and that would be the way that they would control everything. Well, the upshot of this is this was all invented at Columbia University. This this was scientists, the top scientists of the day, the top engineers of that day. They're the ones that came up with this whole thing, and they were looking at, of course, the Great Depression at that point, 1932. So you can understand a little bit what they were thinking. Well, we're really doomed here. You know, the world is falling apart, soup lines, people out of work, etc. Um, but they kind of went over the edge when they decided, hey, we could do better, than everything else, and we can create a new economic system that would be totally radical. Um, and the scientists basically would take over everything, and the engineers. In fact, they appealed to FDR, who was just being elected at that point, to declare himself dictator and dismiss Congress and get rid of all politicians everywhere, and basically appoint um, technocrats to positions of control. And that would have been the end of it if we got the New Deal instead of the technocracy business. But in any case, this is where it started. And unfortunately, or fortunately, whatever, the whole movement got kicked out of Columbia University. They lasted about a year before they got kicked out, and they started the founders started a membership organization called Technocracy Inc. At that point, incorporated, in other words, and it was a membership organization. You had to pay dues to be a member, and you attended meetings around the country, and you studied to understand technocracy. Whatever they had a course, they called it the technocracy study course. It was a book like this, and this was the Bible there. And so, in any case, they thought that they were losing steam by the mid '40s, but the movement persisted. Nevertheless, it just dwindled, and when it got picked up by Zbigniew Brzezinski, who was also a professor at Columbia University, when he wrote his book called Between Two Ages, America's Role in the Technotronic Era. He was looking forward to this age we're in today, and he wrote about it, and basically it was warmed over technocracy from the 1930s,
And when did he write that?
about 1970. That book's available, by the way. It's been scanned and you can find it on the internet if anybody wants to read it. It's there.
And it was interesting because when I heard you talking about this, you were talking about how he joined forces with Rockefeller, and then that was all connected with the Trilateral Commission.
That's right. The Trilateral Commission was, in my opinion, definitely the headwater of globalization. That's where modern globalization, I'll say. They were the ones that started all the programs that we have today that we deal with, including the United Nations and Sustainable Development and Agenda 21, 2030 Agenda, that sort of thing. And their fingerprints were all over all of this stuff from the get-go. And now we see that they're still around, by the way, that even though Rockefeller is dead and Brzezinski is dead, Henry Kissinger died last year, and some of them are still around, but they've replaced their membership over the years. So they're very active today in the world still, and it's a very small membership, by the way. But you see their fingerprint everywhere.
So it's very much behind the scenes. Anyone you could
Yes.
name that's part of it?
Well, in the last administration, Secretary of State Anthony Blinken was a member of the Trilateral Commission, interestingly. And also in relation to Ukraine, the ambassador to Poland. This is really interesting. When I found this out, I was going to drop my teeth. I don't have false teeth, but you get my point. But I was surprised to find out that Mark Brzezinski, that's Brzezinski's son, he became a member of the Trilateral Commission himself, and he was appointed to be the ambassador to Poland. So here you have son of Brzezinski meddling in issues in Poland, right next to Ukraine, and I could see the spirit of Brzezinski working in his son to create chaos in that area, in the area that in Europe. So it's been a long slog for sure. But there's always been members of the Trilateral Commission and key positions in every administration since Jimmy Carter, and probably before that with Gerald Ford as well. But they've always had their presence behind the scene. They don't flaunt their power. They don't flaunt their positions necessarily. They normally will come off like Anthony Blinken. He's just kind of all shucks, kind of a guy, And I'm sorry I don't buy it, but we've seen them behave over the years, and they're always understated, and they say don't look at us. We're just here. We're just nothing to see here. And
Right, right. Because I barely ever I hear anything about them,
yes,
and meanwhile they're doing things behind the scenes and very powerful, and it's all connected with technocracy. So again, can you just give the definition of technocracy?
sure. The first the first element of technocracy and the definition that they gave in 1937 in the magazine uh, called The Technocrat, they said the first thing they led with is that technocracy is the science of social engineering. That's key because um, they they looked at humanity as being the problem for everything that we were suffering at that time. Whether it's economic uh, destruction or um, to the destruction of the environment. It doesn't matter. Everything was pinned on human misbehavior. So they coined this concept of the science of social engineering, and with that in mind, they then launched into um, the production and consumption of all goods in society based on this social engineering. In other words, they were going to manage all of the resources of the world, make sure that people were engineered to do what they wanted to do with those resources, and they figured that would be the end all of management of the human race on planet Earth. Well, when they talked about supplying goods and services to people, everybody in society, and basically everybody would be kind of a kept person. And when I say kept, well, they would be appointed a job, and they'd get a stipend for that job, but there would be no way to save money. There would be no way to accumulate property. There would be no way to give inheritance to your children, etc. It was totally unplugged system. But this is how they framed it. First on the science of social engineering, and then you'll do what we tell you to do because you're going to obey the science. After all,
Oh my
didn't we?
goodness, how much
Yeah,
have we heard that word?
I know.
Trust the science.
Exactly. This is the worship of science at this point. And by the way, for your Christian audience, I'll tell you what: the business of scientism, that's a religion that was coined long, long ago by a French philosopher by the name of Henri de Saint-Simon. This guy was from France. Everything bad came out of France in that day for sure. But he said basically we need to throw Christianity out the window because it wasn't meeting the needs of the people, and he wanted to create a priesthood of scientists and engineers that would administer science and engineering to the people. And this morphed into the whole realm of scientism over the years. Scientism became or posited that science would be the God, the priest and engineers, or the priest and who the engineers and scientists would be the priesthood, and they would administer the dictates of that God onto humanity.
Well, what you were describing before, I mean, it just sounds like the Great Reset, where you own nothing and
Yes,
your job is going to just be whatever they tell you, and everyone gets the same amount of money. You own nothing. You're happy.
I'm not happy. Forget the happy part.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, now back to Elon Musk. So with his grandfather, I mean, because people are, like he just said, the news was talking about how Musk is clashing with OpenAI CEO Sam Altman. What do you say with all of that?
Yeah. Well, all of these titans of technology, like the Sam Altmans and the Elon Musk and others, Peter Thiel is another one. Um, all of them have a mindset that is totally different than our mindset. I'll be a little presumptuous to think that you're probably like me more than you're like them, but I'm pretty sure.
Except you know way more than I do on all of this, but go on.
Well, they have a worldview that is thoroughly mechanistic, for one thing. When I say mechanistic, there's no room for a creator, there's no room for God at all. We're just basically, the whole world is just a bunch of atoms arranged in different configurations to make rocks and buildings and concrete and humans as well and animals and all that. It's all the same, whatever the elements are of the world are, and they view everything as cause and effect. And this has ugly consequences because when you take God out of the picture altogether and no possibility of divine intervention or creation or whatever, well, that basically this steers mankind into a ditch that he can't get out of. These people, like the Elon Musk of the world, they're basically already in this ditch where they think, well, the Earth is doomed, and their only ultimate answer is, well, we need to go to Mars. We need to escape planet Earth. We need to make the escape pod for the Earthlings to get out of this planet because it's going to eventually blow up. Well, I'm kind of simplifying a little bit, but this is the reigning philosophy of these people at this point, that whatever they do is okay. And anything they do is just a possibility that they need to explore. And when when a normal person listens to people like or somebody like Elon Musk say something, or Altman say something, you have to remember that you think you're receiving their words with the definitions that you understand. However, in their mind, they have different definitions for certain things. that you, if you knew what that was, you'd be tearing your hair out. But when Elon Musk talks about that he wants to uh, go to Mars, and he wants to establish a 1 million person uh, community on Mars, and he wants it to be a technocracy. He said that in print. Okay, what kind of a person are you dealing with? Is he that unplugged from reality that he can't focus on anything down here, and he thinks, well, he's a savior of mankind to get us off the planet so that we can be surviving in outer space? This is crazy, absolutely crazy stuff.
Now
But
I heard you explain about Elon that he has Asperger's, and I mean it's like he's not really in touch with the feelings of people, but meanwhile people will look on X and go, look, he's conservative, he's agreeing with everything that we're saying, although you would say we're taking his words and viewing it from our point of view, and
that's
it
right.
doesn't mean the same thing. But I mean, so does he? So does he have Asperger's or?
Well, he says he does, and nobody pays attention to it. He's a brilliant guy. Uh, because you have Asperger's doesn't mean you're not smart or high functioning. In other words, he can drive himself to work, and he can eat, prepare his food, stuff like that. But he's totally focused uh, on his projects at hand, put it that way. And I don't want to really get into Asperger's
Oh no no
syndrome,
oh no
but
no yeah, that's
it is
fine.
disturbing on one hand because he's he's not able to relate to people in a normal way, with emotional attachments,
Right.
and uh, that's just the way they are. That's this is part of the autism spectrum, and you can't. You have it or you don't, basically, and he does.
Right.
Other people, and by the way, other people in the tech industry are known for the Asperger's syndrome. Lots of people in the community have Asperger's. That's just
That's interesting. I mean, because so it's like they're brilliant,
yes,
and but not in touch with like people. I mean, this is going to be very simplistic, but it almost reminds me of like when people talk about type A people, like type A people. I don't want to just give a blanket sentence of, but they can just they may have like this vision and vision, but they may not really be in touch with how people feel. But can you explain who Sam Altman is, and why is Musk clashing with him?
well, okay. Sam Altman came out of the venture capital industry. He was a technologist, but he specialized in creating startup companies. Or well, he didn't necessarily create them himself, but he ran an organization called Y Combinator that was a platform where startup companies could get started, to get encouragement to do their products, whatever, and do their development. He was very successful at that, by the way. Lots of companies came out of Y Combinator, and so he got involved with Elon Musk originally when they decided to start OpenAI. It was supposed to be a nonprofit organization, and it was going to be basically benign. It was intended to be, oh, I don't know, for the benefit of humanity, they said at the time. But along the way, Sam Altman got a big whiff of where they were going with AI, and he said, "We need to turn this into a commercial company." And he did that. And so now OpenAI is not a nonprofit anymore, and is a fully commercial company, and with him as a dictator at this point. Well, Elon Musk took exception when what that whole switchover took place, and he actually sued Sam Altman over whatever, breaking their covenant of the keeping it nonprofit and so on. I don't know where that lawsuit went, but maybe it's still around. But nevertheless, that started the rift between the two of them. So while Elon Musk is criticizing Sam Altman to be unplugged and off the rails and taking this AI thing to the moon, and this is bad thing. It's going to destroy humanity, and he gives all this lip service to it. In the meantime, he's been perfecting his own AI system called Grok. That's XAI, X.ai is the website, right? And so he has his own AI system over here on the side. And basically, you get the idea. All Elon wants to do is basically get the copyright on everything in the universe related to AI. And now he has the largest data center. He built it recently in Memphis, the largest data center in the world with all the high tech, the base, the state of the art processors, and this thing is just huge. We're talking tens of thousands of square feet of facility, and he says I'm going to take Grok, and he's going to make it the basically the end all of AI. So whatever.
Now, you were explaining. I heard you talking about that and saying that is with. Okay, let me see here. So sorry. Okay, I heard you explaining that was with AGI, general intelligence, that this can happen soon, but there's other, like China may have this technology.
Oh yes,
Explain.
there are many different companies now who are probably very close to achieving AGI. That's artificial general intelligence. That's one step just before probably ASI, they call super intelligence, but at this point they're shooting for AGI, and certainly OpenAI has been on the forefront of this because they were the first ones that released a commercial product to the world, and the world got a taste of AI with hands-on stuff, and starting in I think in November 2022, and they just expanded like crazy. I mean, they were within 2 months, 3 months, they had like 200 million users around the world, and it just exploded at that point. So all of these companies are trying. They're in a arms race at this point, mostly in America, but there's also a Chinese entry as well called, I think it's Deep Mind or something, or Deep. I can't remember what the name of it is right now offhand, but there's a Chinese entry that's very advanced right now as well, and they might achieve AGI at some point. So there's competition for sure, and competitors, they'll do anything to get their product first to market. They'll knife anybody in the back if they can, and just a jockeying for their own position. But
Okay, but okay, wait. I am a regular housewife, so why is it a problem?
okay, let's. How about if we look at an example of what Larry Ellison in the press conference the other day with President Trump and the president of SoftBank, and as well yeah, Sam Altman was there too for this conference, press conference. Um, Larry Ellison got
And he's
up.
with Oracle, right?
He's a founder of Oracle, exactly. So that's one of the. In fact, he's probably the fifth richest man in the world right now. But nobody really knows a bunch. He's not a public figure, put it that way, like Elon is. But Ellison got up and gave a plea. He's not a doctor, not a medical professional, but he gave a plea for using AI to solve cancer. And he said, basically, he's saying, well, there's an AI blood test now that the AI system can scan your blood and figure out if you had a cancer. And then the AI program can take the genome of the cancer or tumor or whatever and break that down definitively and with a sequence of the genetic material in it, and then also your normal genetic material. This all can be done by AI just in a few, maybe just in a few minutes even. And when AI breaks down the diagnosis and just gives it to you, well, you have this melanoma or that cancer, turbo cancer, whatever it is, blood disease, doesn't matter. The AI is going to figure out what is wrong with you, first off, and it's going to give you a prescription that it will make itself uh, like a specialized messenger RNA or a DNA injection just for you. Nobody else is going to get it, but only you. And when your diagnosis is done, there's going to be no second opinion for you. Not going to be an appeal for you. If you don't like it, you can say, well, I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to take this shot that you're about to give to me. You'll be bounced out of the healthcare system forever because the AI has said, no, this is what you have, and you're refusing our treatment, even if it kills you. It doesn't matter to them. The AI that has no mercy, no understanding, no human understanding, whatever, but it will put you in a straitjacket in the end of it, and it'll roll up your sleeve for you and shove the needle in your arm. This this is the heartbeat of AI at this point. This is where it's going. You listen to what people like Larry Ellison is saying about total surveillance. He says, well, everybody should be monitored because we know what everything's going on. You can't get away with anything. You can't get away with crime or beating your wife or whatever. It doesn't matter. You know, the AI will monitor you 24/7. This is not what humanity wants. This is not the future that we want either.
I have so many questions for you. I want to just backtrack about the Trilateral Commission. Is there anyone in Trump's administration that is part of it?
So far, I don't see any members of the Trilateral Commission overtly. I'm going to do a study probably in a month, and I'll figure because I have all a membership list of every member from the United States, especially, and I'm going to do a survey and make sure that there's not anybody in positions of power. There are people in the background who are very disturbing, mostly in people in industry, but so far I don't see anybody, for instance, like the Secretary of State or other cabinet positions. I don't see any members there yet.
Okay. Oh my goodness. Everything you say, then I have another question. There's so many things I want to ask you. Okay. Which people are disturbing?
Well, like the people say, the chairman of Mastercard and Visa, the big bankers, for instance, they're all represented on the Trilateral Commission membership list. You have a lot of politicians there. You have some academics. You have some people from law firms, big institutional law firms. Um, it's a smattering of people for sure, but these are the people that are leading the charge for globalization.
Okay, and now we're going to get to the race to build your digital twin. But I want to go back to when you were talking about surveillance and talk about Peter Thiel, and it's kind of concerning since he groomed J.D. Vance. Can you explain who Peter Thiel is?
Exactly. Yeah. J.D. Vance is a product of Peter Thiel. He's done this in two instances, by the way. He did it in Arizona here with a guy named Blake Masters, who he sent from California to live in Arizona to be a candidate for senator. He lost his race, by the way, a few years ago. He tried again and he lost again. I'm glad for that, but nevertheless, I've had personal experience personally with a Peter Thiel uh, surrogate, if you will. So this happened with Peter Thiel with J.D. Vance when he got him elected to the Senate in Ohio. He gave a huge amount of money. In fact, I think it was the largest contribution ever to a Senate campaign, and he helped Vance get elected. But the only job that Vance ever had after he got out of college basically was with Peter Thiel. He was his groomer, if you will, and he Peter Thiel wanted to get a foothold into politics, and he was very successful because once Vance got into the Senate, then there was an opportunity to advance him to be the vice president, and he did. And now he has his man in the driver's seat. Oh, well, in the second driver's seat, right? Um, so Peter Thiel is an interesting character because this is the guy who set the culture, the tone of the culture in Silicon Valley in the first place, all of it. When he was the co-founder of PayPal back in the day when PayPal was first introduced, Elon Musk was part of that group too. All the founders and the early adopters, the developers of PayPal. This collectively was called the PayPal Mafia. It wasn't the mob, okay? It wasn't that in the mob, but nevertheless, they called themselves the PayPal Mafia. Well, this whole group set the tone for Silicon Valley, and I mean all of it. Everybody still talks about that role that Peter Thiel had to groom basically everybody in the whole system. But Peter Thiel, here's a guy also who has Asperger's, by the way. And you can see it. You can see it. Just look at it. Look at how he talks and stuff. Um, but he has social issues as well, and connecting with people. He now runs the largest private intelligence company in the world, surveillance company, and he serves all the governments of the world. Anybody who give him money, and he's at the top of this pyramid now, this the surveillance pyramid, and he wants to get remember he wants to get a man in politics, but he also is on the steering committee of the Bilderberg Group, which meets in Europe every year to steer the course of globalization. And what a deep connection he has to the people, the powers that be, if you will, on the steering committee itself for the Bilderberg Group, to set the agenda for every meeting and the list of attendees for every meeting. And here he is injecting himself now into American politics. Okay, so here's Peter Thiel, an international man who has deep ties to the international community. Is he bringing that international doctrine into our country to introduce it to our country? Yes, he is, flat out. This is the way that the Trilateral Commission, by the way, has done with this over the years. They consult internationally, then they bring the policies back that they want to enact locally and shove it down our throat.
But people will say, President Trump is doing the opposite. I mean, the opposite of globalism, because he's not interested in globalism. That's what he says. And I mean, there's a really amazing things that he is doing, like
Yes.
North Carolina. With the hurricane. I mean, these people have been out living in the snow, and freezing to death, and the other administration didn't do anything, but Trump is. And then Trump is
Yes.
going out to California, to figure out what's going on with the fires. And we're seeing him do a lot of things that are great, and he seems
Oh,
to, like Christians. He's not persecuting Christians. And but meanwhile, there's this other stuff going on. I mean, I feel like a ping pong.
I know. I hear your pain. I'll tell you what. When I said at the beginning, this business of your head spinning around, this is what you're talking about. It's, well, there you could say it's confusing, but that doesn't really say what I want to say. It's like you see black over here and white over here. How do you reconcile together? Well, I'm so glad, for instance, that Trump pardoned all the J6ers. That's totally cool, right? He's sealing the border. That needs to be done, I think. And he says he's gonna, restructure the government somehow. I don't know about that, but, we should get a handle on the budget for sure. Well, he's doing some good things on one hand, but on the other hand, he's doing some very dark things that we should be concerned about. And I would not say no. You can't throw the man out with the bathwater. We don't want to do that. But nevertheless, we should hold all these people accountable. And if we don't want the future that they're going to bring, we need to speak up now, because now's the time. Not before they do it to us, but now. So when Trump, for instance, has a presser, and he brings in the Larry Ellisons of the world, and the SoftBanks of the world, and the Sam Altmans of the world, and the Elon Musk of the world, whatever, and it basically says that he's going to drive AI to the moon. Well, we should be concerned about that, because that's not going to end well. We don't want that. That's not what we ever asked for. And so we see the changes taking place that none of this stuff was talked about before the election, by the way. Coming up to the election, whoever heard about Greenland being inducted, Panama, Mexico? Did you ever hear about the Gulf of America before the election? No, you didn't. How about Canada coming in to be the first 51st state? We didn't see any of this stuff before the election. Now all of a sudden, Mr. Trump is wheeling and dealing to get the art of the deal, whatever, to make these things come about. And when you have people like Elon Musk saying, "Well, Mr. President, we need to go to Mars," and he says we need to go to Mars, and he uses the term to do it. This is our manifest destiny. That sends up alarms for me all over the place. Manifest destiny was an eighth from 1850 was how that was a doctrine that was used to drive people westward to settle California and everything in between, to drive the Indian populations out of the country, and they did it in the name of God. And now he's this same concept is being used to explain, well, you have manifest 2.0 now with Greenland and Canada and Mexico and Central America. And oh, by the way, we can apply that concept to going to Mars as well. Really? This God is opening the door for us to go to Mars, and it's our manifest destiny to do that. I didn't hear any talk about that before the election. I'm sorry, but
Well, I want to go back to Greenland. Can you explain the North American technate? And also, I mean, it just seems like also the Club of Rome had that map.
yes.
And what's the big? Why do they want Why do they want Greenland?
Well, this is a mystery. This is the cover of the technocracy study course from 1934. That map that you see right there. Do you see Greenland up there? You see Canada, you see Mexico, you see all of Central America and the top part of South America. That's the cap of South America. That's what they just defined as the North American technate in 1934. They didn't say how they were going to do it. They had no plan to do it, but somehow they figured that it was going to happen. But they said, well, they didn't talk about where to send the military out and conquer everybody. They didn't say they're just going to try to buy them or anything to have any money. But that was a mystery to me, studying historic technocracy. What were these people thinking? Well, here we are today. We've had multiple instances of a push to establish the North American community, like with Canada, Mexico, and the United States. We saw it in Obama. We saw it in Bush II administration. But now it's on steroids at this point, and now it's including Greenland in it, not just what we had before, but Greenland's a major part of this original concept.
Now, some people will say, yeah, but I mean, isn't it better that we have Greenland instead of China? And then I've also heard people talk about Greenland that I am not technologically inclined, but that Greenland would be a great place to have a lot of the AI machinery, or I mean, can you explain?
Oh yes, oh yes, exactly. It would be a great barren place to put all kinds of data centers on for sure, because they need to run in the cold environments anyway. Um, I would say I would look at Greenland, and personally, I would say, well, that's an interesting thought. Maybe we should make an offer and buy the whole thing from Denmark. That's probably up for grabs, and maybe you could do that. But here's my problem with it. At this point, they're doing this according to this doctrine of manifest destiny. In other words, they're making the blame for this, laying the blame for this on God. And they're saying basically that God is telling us to expand in this way, and damn the torpedoes, we're going to do it. I recoil at that thought that God is being mixed into this system. This has nothing to do with God whatsoever. And even and this is my opinion. I realize I'll probably set off some nerves here, but in my opinion, God is not in the business of telling us to expand anywhere in the universe, especially here in North America. There may be good strategic reasons to do something with Greenland, but we should not. We should be very careful to blame God for doing it. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I mean, I think the bottom line is you. Uh, there's such a big problem with all of these technocrats, these engineers, these scientists being in power, and then this rise of AI. And as you've said before, because I've listened to you of just how AI is at a point of no return because there's been darkness programmed into it.
It seems that way. It really does.
Yeah.
It's the idea of a machine taking over the responsibilities for man. That just doesn't compute for me. It just doesn't make any sense at all because artificial intelligence is an oxymoron from the get-go. It's not possible to have intelligence bred into a machine. Humans were the pinnacle of God's creation. We're the only ones in the universe that are endued with intelligence, and that can't be. There's no substitute for human intelligence. However, they're making a different entity other than humans, and they're pawning it off on us as being basically eventually being human or something like a human. They see, well, it can be sentient someday. No, it won't. I'm sorry, it won't. But it's going to be very dark in the meantime if they can figure out a way to subdue all of humanity with AI, an artificial thing, a fake thing. You can see the devil in this. I'm sorry, you
Yeah,
just
no,
really can.
absolutely. And what I find interesting is that you've said a lot of these technocrats have put a lot of money into transhumanism and living forever.
Yes.
That's a whole subject of itself. But can you explain the race to build digital twins?
Well, this is a concept that kind of grew out of AI. Um, and we probably have to talk a little bit about all the sensors that have been, put in society that is called the Internet of Things. And you have sensors in buildings, sensors in streets, street lights, you name it, sensors in bodies. Now, the Internet of Bodies as well. And this, all of this, all of these things can collect information. That's what I'm trying to say. All of these things can transmit information to a central point. When that happens, I'll use a building as an example. I'm looking at these skyscrapers behind me here. All those buildings are they have an organic feel in a sense, but they're like a living building, right? They have thermostats, the lights going on and off, and the people coming and going, and the doors or whatever. It's kind of like a living organism in a way. But if you could collect all that information from the building on a real-time basis, and you can feed it into a program that basically that has a model of the building itself where everything can be pinpointed, you all of a sudden you could begin to see a model of like a digital twin appearing over here in ether space, and it will look like the building on the outside, and inside you can drill down into it and see what's going on with all the systems in the building being modeled on a real-time basis. The idea of the digital twin then of that building is to make tweaks to the digital twin to see what will happen with the tweak. And if you like what happened, then you can force the change back into the original building, the real building. And you could say, well, that kind of makes a little sense on one hand. Well, if you want to just see what would happen if you changed, for instance, the thermostat on floor 10, does it affect anything on floor 12? Well, you can make those decisions before you commit it, the change back to the original building. Fast forward, digital twin technology is being applied to everything, including buildings, even cities, even states. There's a project right now to model the whole world to make a digital twin out of the whole planet. There's 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 the possibility where humans are being created with a digital twin that doctors or whoever wants to study it can look at your digital twin with all the things that happen in your body, and they could make tweaks to your digital twin to see what would happen if they do a certain thing. And if they say, well, that's what we're going to do to you now, we figured it out over here, boom, it gets committed into your body. And there you go. You've been affected by this whole thing. Well, this business of this idea in the first place is all about control. That's the data that's collected from you, from the building. It doesn't matter what it is. The data is collected somewhere from something, and it's always used for control of the original object. And this is the whole concept. In other words, it's a control system to control the original object where the data was collected from. And
Well,
it's nefarious, I tell you.
yeah, no,
Ugly.
it sounds scary. And I heard you say, imagine standing next to a hologram of yourself, and the hologram responds to your heartbeat. I was like, it's almost like we're in a sci-fi movie. And then about updating the information, how will they update my digital evil twin? I mean, because it's like that's being used for nefarious purposes, although some people will say, yeah, but it's going to be used for medical things, which is going to be good, but
Yes.
it never ends well. I'm sorry. But I mean, obviously they can get the information from here.
Yes.
And so, what can people do, in the midst of all of this? And where do you see that Bible prophecy is speeding up here?
Oh, yes. Oh, totally. We've seen. I used to say like 10 years ago. Well, it used to, what happened in 10 years now is happening in 2 years, or maybe in 1 year. Forget that. That was old thinking. Now things happen in just a matter of months. It was just the curve has gone up and is going vertical at this point. And this tells me that there's this, like if this was the Tower of Babel being built right now, it's reaching the limit of its expansion upward, and where's it left to go? Nowhere. That there's going to be a time here where it'll be the end of it, and then God will intervene. I think that's going to be the probably where the rapture takes place. But I understand other Christians have other ideas about that. I personally think that's going to be where the Antichrist wants to step in and take over the whole thing, and this will be the beast system we see in Revelation 13. It's just, to me, it's very clear. To somebody who's never considered that, you just need to consider it. Because all the things that's happening now to put humanity into a straitjacket, that's a perfect setup for, and by the way, also it fits the description of things in Revelation 13. And, here we are. We're knocking at the door, I think.
Now, what can we do? Like, what's some practical things we could do in the meanwhile so they can build the digital twin of me or you?
Whatever they do, is going to affect you and me for sure. We live in this world, but we're not, the Bible to instruct us not to be of the world. Not we live in it. We have to. This is the only planet we have, only society we have. We have to be in the world, but you don't have to be part of the world, and to the extent where you're worried about the world, what the world is doing, more than you worried about what's going on in the kingdom of God in the first place, and in your life especially. Christians should not be fearing this system. They should not. I just cannot stress that enough. Fear will drive you exactly where they want you to go. And that's what they want at this point. It's unmistakable. So that's the first thing Christians need to get a hold of. No fear here. If you can't, in fact, the Bible says perfect love drives out fear. To the extent you're fearful, the devil's plan is to get you separated from the love of God in the first place. That's demonic for sure. So, that's our first mission, I think, is to get in touch with God again in a way that you can relate to him daily and get instructions from him on how to be in the world but not of it. So you're not captured by the world. That makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. And I heard you saying some practical things of turn off Alexa, turn off Siri, get a Faraday bag.
That's right. This is low hanging fruit for most people. It's not an expensive thing to do. Flip the switch. Just don't do it. I can see a time in the future, for instance, where people will be destroying their smartphones altogether and just say, we're not going to do this anymore. We're just not going to do it. And forget, if you want to make a phone call, get a landline and just do it like this.
I actually miss my landlines, but
I
anyway,
know.
guess
Me too.
shows how old I am here. Okay, Patrick, you have so much amazing information, and then you have amazing books, and but also your website. Can you give everyone your website, how they can find you? That
Yeah.
website has so much updated information on what's going on with technocracy and what's going on in the world right now. So yes, please give your website.
You bet. That's my specialty is transhumanism and technocracy at this point. It's technocracy.news, not .com, .news. Technocracy is TECH, like tech, and then nocracy. And you can find, over 6,800 articles now and counting. I post articles every day when I find them on the subject. And now this is the largest repository in the world about technocracy and now transhumanism as well. It stuns me that I've gotten this far, and it's how this is all morphed into what I have right now. And people can support me then by their site, by the way, by subscribing to my premium service to unlock all these articles and a bunch of downloads that I have, the library books that I've studied over the years, and whatever. All this information is available for people. I just charged 700. Excuse me, not $700, but like 750 a month, and this is a great part of my support as well.
Well, I think it's very worthwhile, and I think it's an amazing website. I'm going to have to go to it every day, so I'll be updated. Well, thank you so much for being with me today. Thank you.
I hope we can do it again.
Oh, I'd love to. Great, thanks.
God bless.
God bless you too.